Thank you very much for having me today. My name is Carl. I work at ZeroEx, responsible for operations and exploration. And I'm really happy to share some of our experiences with you, focusing on the challenges we faced and what we've learned from them. Let me start with giving you a quick overview of who is ZeroEx, what are we doing? ZeroEx is a German startup dedicated to regional enhanced rock weathering projects. We are a team of 14 scientists, experts, and business developers by now. The initial idea for ERW came from one of our team members, here Jacob, who grew up on a farm himself. And when he talked to us about the project, we are all like from the beginning really enthusiastic for the project, and that led to a rapid implementation, resulting in around 10,000 tons of rock powder, just 6 months after the initial idea. So we acted, pretty fast. Here you can see the regions of our recent projects. So we mainly focus now on the western part of Germany, but these are the regions of our recent projects. So I'm going to give you a quick introduction in our process of our ERW project. So first of all, we are looking for suitable agricultural regions using just public data, so to see where can we implement our project. After that, we have to make sure that in these regions that there are also quarries in these regions, so we can secure a feedstock supply. Also closing long-term framework contracts with the quarries. We'll talk about the quarries later. After that, or more parallel to that, we contact the farmers in direct vicinity of the quarries, and then also the feedstock gets transported to them by a subcontractor. And then after the baseline sampling, the feedstock is delivered by logistic providers and then spread by the farmers or by subcontractors. Then after that, the nature does the rest for us by transforming atmospheric CO2 into stable biocarbonates. And then we have to make sure that we take regular soil and water samples to measure and quantify the whole weathering process. So right now we're gonna do like a deep dive to the three main stakeholders of our ERW project. I'm gonna start with the quarries, so the feedstock supply. And engaging with quarries presents unique challenges, from negotiating contracts to ensuring the quality of the feedstocks. And our partnership with the quarries is crucial in scaling our project, because without the feedstock, we can't continue with our ERW project. And we've reached out to more than 100 quarries to test different feedstocks, and actually called so many that they forwarded us to the group leader, BAG, which stands for Basalt Aktiengesellschaft. And by now we have a really good cooperation with them, so they help us to find new feedstock and to cooperate with the quarries. And finding the right material is really a challenge, as there are strict regulations on the use of rock powder in agriculture. This is why we have to carry out various analyses before we can use the rock powder for our project. In particular, the heavy metal concentration, nickel values in particular, are critical, because that means that some quarries have to be excluded because certain values can't be exceeded. And then when we talk to the quarries, most of them are very happy to find actually a buyer for their rock powder, as they would otherwise have not really another use for it. Yeah, and I think looking ahead, there's a potential for queries that they can offset their own emissions through projects like we are doing. So they also contribute to a more sustainable future. The next, really, really important stakeholder of our ERW project is, of course, the farmer. And one of our biggest challenges is to get farmers on board with our project so they can spread the rock on their land. And yeah, when it comes to reaching out to the farmers, we've used a variety of outreach strategies, including machine rings and associations. But we also contact farmers, and I think that's the most difficult way, by just looking up contact details on the internet or on phone books, and then simply cold calling them. But then when we talk to the farmers, they are generally really interested in our project, especially considering that they receive free soil improvers. Yeah, and often in our initial conversations, we discover that the use of rock powder is not unknown, and it has only been stopped for cost reasons, because normal fertilizers and normal lime is just more cost effective for them. And then often, we discover that we share like anecdotes, and such as that, for example, my grandfather also used the material, the rock powder, to improve the soil like many years ago. And we are often just sitting there like with a beer and talking about the project. So that's really nice when we get to meet the farmers in person. But of course, the farmers also have concerns about the project, and the main concerns are the additional costs. But then we can just explain them that there are no real additional costs for them, neither for buying the rock powder, nor for transporting it, nor for spreading it, but because that's all costs we are taking. Then, of course, the additional labor is a big concern. So the additional working steps to spread out the rock powder, especially as they are already working at full capacity during the harvest and also after the harvest. This is really a big point. And then, of course, the wear and tear on the machines, because the small grains of rock can get into every bearing, every gaps, which is not really good for the machines. Also, when we are talking about like a quantity of 40 tons per hectare, the soil compaction due to the spreading process also really matters, because just to give you an idea, so 40 tons per hectare means that you unload basically 2 truckloads on 1 hectare, which is so weight-wise and volume-wise a lot. And also another critical point is that the availability of suitable machines, as contractors who provide these machines are often already working at full capacity, so they don't have any additional capacities for any more machines. So that's also a point to keep in mind. As already mentioned before, when talking to farmers, we really prioritize face-to-face contact, as we found that communication can be a challenge, especially when it comes to project parameters and logistics, because often farmers don't respond to emails or don't answer their phones, which makes it pretty difficult. So we try to be on site as much as possible, which is also the reason why I can't be in Paris, unfortunately, today, because I have some meetings scheduled with farmers later today. And then once everything is done, once we signed the contract, we take the first samples as a baseline, and then the application can begin. And after the application, further samples are taken to track the exact amount of CO2 captured. Yeah, and also the exact documentation of the project is a challenge, as every project step must be documented, which is not always easy working together with mostly analog farmers. Yeah, but I think it's doable. The next important stakeholder is the logistics. And yeah, I'd say so getting the farmers on board is only the beginning, I'd say. And the logistical aspects of our project present its really own challenges. So for example, we've had calls from truckers at 6 a.m. in the morning, asking where to deliver the material or asking for directions. Often the exact unloading locations can be a challenge, and require assistance to navigate the last kilometers. Yeah, as fields obviously don't have a separate address that can be just entered in the navigation device. So yeah, we need to establish the communication between the truck driver and the farmer. So yeah, I'd said this communication line is really essential for the last few kilometers. However, this is often a challenge because the farmer does not answer his phone, or the truck driver doesn't really know exactly where he is. And yeah, so the coordinating farmer availability, quantities, and truck capacity can be really difficult. Also, the amount to be transported is a major challenge. So to minimize the transport emissions, we try to also minimize the transport distances. However, we can't spread the rock right next to the quarry because the composition of the rock there is too similar to the composition of the soil, which leads to a slower reaction. And this is why we look for areas that are suitable based on the composition of the soil and are not too far away from the nearest quarry. For example, yeah, so this is like the things we have to keep in mind if we are looking for potential project areas. And also here, to give you an idea of the amount of rock powder we are talking about, if we want to cover an area of about 100 hectares, assuming an application rate of, again, 40 tons per hectare, it would take 4,000 tons. And this equates to around 160 truckloads, which is really, a lot. And we really have to make sure that we have enough trucks, enough drivers available at the right time. Yeah, so despite the challenges, we are very optimistic that ERW can be implemented on a large scale and that a lot of CO2 can be bound as a result. However, there are some unanswered questions. For example, how much is the farmer actually willing to spread? How much rock powder can be transported? And whether there are even enough suitable machines to spread the rock powder. So yeah, I think we can say that the future is certainly exciting, especially regarding ERW, and we look forward to continuing our research into making ERW a reality. Thank you very much.